Armin stepped into the village market on a warm afternoon, expecting nothing more than the usual noise, colors, and smells that always filled the place. It was a routine visit for him. He came every week to buy fresh vegetables, meet a few familiar faces, and enjoy the peaceful walk through the old paths of the town. But that day, something pulled his attention away from everything else. It was a small girl sitting quietly beside a wooden stand, her head lowered, her hands resting on a little basket filled with handmade bracelets. The market was busy. People moved around in a hurry, talking, bargaining, laughing, or complaining about prices. But despite all the noise, Armin felt strangely drawn toward the silent little figure. She looked around 9 or 10 years old, wearing a simple faded dress. Her hair was tied in a messy braid, and her eyes, though calm, carried a weight that did not belong to someone her age. She did not call out to people to buy the bracelets. She did not wave them in the air. She simply sat there, hoping that someone would stop. Curiosity made Armin walk closer. When he approached, the girl slowly lifted her face and gave him a shy smile. Her voice was soft when she spoke. "Bracelet for $5, she said, almost whispering, as if unsure whether anyone wanted to hear her. Armin looked at the bracelets in the basket. They were simple, made from colorful threads and tiny plastic beads. Not the kind of bracelets that would catch someone's eye instantly, but they were neat and made with care. He could tell she had spent a lot of time making them. There were perhaps 20 or so, and it didn't take long for Armin to guess that she hadn't sold many. A vendor standing behind her, a middle-aged man who sold vegetables, noticed Armin looking at the girl. He leaned forward and spoke in a low voice. "She has been sitting here since morning. Hardly anyone stops. People are busy, you know. They don't see how hard she's trying." Armin nodded. Something about the situation felt unusual. Children sometimes helped their parents in the market, but this girl was sitting alone. "Where are her parents?" he asked. The vendor sighed. "Her mother is sick. Very sick. The girl comes here every day now. She says she needs money for medicine. $5 for one bracelet. But most people just walk away. Maybe they don't believe her. Or maybe they think someone else will help." Armin felt a soft ache inside. He turned back to the girl, who was quietly waiting for his decision. She didn't pressure him. She didn't beg. She only watched him with hopeful eyes, the kind of eyes that made him feel that even a small act might matter a lot. He reached into his pocket without thinking further. "I'll take one," he said gently. The girl's face brightened, not with excitement, but with something deeper: relief, gratitude, and even surprise. She picked up a red and blue bracelet, the one that seemed slightly better than the rest, and handed it to him with both hands, as if offering something very precious. "Thank you," she whispered. Armin smiled, but before he could leave, the vendor spoke again. "You're the first person today to buy one. She's been waiting since morning." The girl lowered her gaze, embarrassed, perhaps not wanting him to feel bad for her. Armin looked at her small basket. He realized that $5 might mean little to him, but for her, it was a step toward something important. Maybe it meant medicine. Maybe it meant food. Maybe it simply meant hope. Without saying anything, he took out another $5 note and placed it in her hand. "This is for another bracelet," he said kindly. Even though he did not pick one from the basket this time, the girl stared at the money in shock. She wasn't expecting it. For a moment, she looked too overwhelmed to speak. Finally, she gave a small nod and said, "Thank you, sir." People around them noticed the moment but didn't stop. The market continued as before, loud and busy. But for the little girl, the world had changed just a little. Armin slipped the bracelet into his pocket and turned to leave. He thought he had done enough, a small act of kindness to help a little girl in need. But the moment he took a step away, he heard her soft voice again. "Sir, please wait." She stood up quickly, almost in a hurry, and walked to the back of the vendor's stand. Armin watched as she reached into a tiny wooden box, hidden beneath the table. She opened it carefully, as if it contained something important or fragile. After a few seconds, she came back holding a folded piece of paper. "This is for you," she said. Her hands trembled slightly as she offered it. Armin frowned, confused. "What is it?" It's a map," she replied. "To my house." He hesitated. He didn't want to make her uncomfortable or misunderstand anything. "Why are you giving this to me?" he asked softly. The girl looked directly into his eyes for the first time. There was no fear in her expression, only trust. "Because you helped me," she said. "You are the first person who bought my bracelet in many days. Maybe you can help my mother too." Armin felt a sudden heaviness in his chest. He didn't expect this. He thought he was just helping a child in a small way. He didn't imagine she would trust him enough to invite him to her home. He looked down at the paper, then at her innocent face. She wasn't forcing him, she wasn't begging. She was simply offering a chance for help because she had no better option. The vendor beside her watched in silence, as if wondering what Armin would do. People around walked past without noticing the deep moment happening between three quiet souls in the middle of a crowded marketplace. Armin opened the paper gently. It was not a proper map, just a rough sketch drawn with pencil. A few lines showed the pathway from the market to a group of small houses near the edge of the village. A X marked one house. Next to it, in uneven handwriting, was written, "My mother is here. My mother is here. My mother is here." He folded the paper slowly. The girl waited, holding her breath, looking hopeful and scared at the same time. "Please don't think bad," she said quickly. "I only gave it because I don't know who else to ask." Armin felt something shift inside him. Her trust was bigger than the $5 he had given. She saw him as a person who cared, someone she could rely on. And that made him feel both honored and responsible. "I understand," he said gently. "I'll see what I can do." A small smile appeared on her face. A smile that showed she believed him completely. She sat down again, calmer than before, as if she had passed a heavy burden into safer hands. Armin walked away from the market with the bracelet in his pocket and the map in his hand, feeling a mix of emotions he couldn't fully name. He didn't know what he would find at the house, marked with a pencil, X. He didn't know what condition her mother was in, or what kind of help the family truly needed. But one thing was clear: his simple act of kindness had opened a door he wasn't expecting. And the girl's next move had surprised him more than anything. He kept walking, thinking about her gentle voice, her brave eyes, and the quiet courage she showed by trusting a stranger. He didn't know it yet, but the journey to that tiny house would change not only the girl's life, but his as well. Armin walked through the market with the folded paper resting lightly in his hand, yet it felt heavier with every step. He had come for vegetables, but now he carried something far more important: trust. The trust of a little girl who believed he could help her mother. He didn't know why she chose him. A stranger she had never met before. But her soft voice kept echoing in his mind. "You helped me. Maybe you can help my mother too." He kept looking at the map as he walked. It was drawn with shaky pencil lines, uneven and slightly smudged, showing the path from the busy market to a quiet group of houses. The map wasn't perfect, but it was clear enough that a child had made it with effort and hope. The X, at the end, seemed to whisper a silent plea. As Armin reached the other end of the market, he almost turned back to make sure the girl was okay. But when he looked over his shoulder, she wasn't watching him. She had returned to her seat beside the wooden table, arranging the bracelets neatly in her basket, ready for the next passerby. Her calmness made him understand something important: she wasn't depending on him out of desperation. She trusted him because she had seen kindness in his action. That trust made Armin more determined. He stepped out of the noisy market and followed the narrow dirt road that curved toward the edge of the village. The sun was still high, and the warm afternoon breeze carried faint sounds of distant children playing and birds chirping. Life around him felt normal. Yet he sensed that something unusual was waiting at the end of the path. As he walked, he remembered the way the girl's hands trembled when she gave him the map. Her eyes had held a bravery he admired. She hadn't begged for help. She had asked softly, with dignity. It made him think about how much courage it must have taken for her to trust a stranger. He wondered how long she had been carrying this responsibility alone, selling small bracelets, hoping someone would give her enough money to help her mother. The path stretched for a few more minutes until the houses began to appear. Small homes made of old bricks, some with broken roofs, others with uneven wooden doors. Clothes hung on lines between walls, drying slowly under the sun. A few women sat outside, chatting quietly while cleaning vegetables. They looked up as Armand passed. Curious but not unkind. He felt slightly nervous. He didn't know the girl's name yet. He didn't even know what exactly he was walking into, but he trusted the feeling that guided him, the idea that helping someone in even a small way was worth the journey. He unfolded the paper again and checked the drawing. A large neem tree was marked near the house with the X. After a few steps, he saw the same tree standing tall ahead. The house beneath it looked small and worn, with a door slightly open and a clay water pot sitting outside. He stopped for a moment and took a deep breath before knocking gently on the half-open door. A soft voice came from inside. "Who is it?" It was a weak voice, tired and low. Armand stepped closer. "My name is Armand," he said politely. "Your daughter? She gave me a map. She told me about you." There was a long moment of silence from inside. Then the door opened wider, and a woman appeared. She looked much older than she probably was, her face pale and tired. Her eyes carried exhaustion but also kindness. She held onto the doorframe for support, as if standing was difficult. "You met Sana," she said softly, giving a faint smile. "She must have told you about me." Armand nodded. "She didn't say much, only that you're not well." The woman stepped aside and gestured for him to enter. The room was small but tidy. A simple bed lay in the corner. A few utensils were stacked neatly on a shelf, and a tiny window let in thin beams of sunlight. The place felt warm in a humble way, but also quiet, too quiet for a home with a child. "I'm sorry she troubled you," the woman said, sitting slowly on the bed. "Sana tries very hard. She thinks she must take care of everything. I tell her she is just a child, but she doesn't listen." Armand shook his head. "She didn't trouble me at all. She only trusted me, and I want to understand how I can help." Tears gathered in the woman's eyes, though she tried to blink them away. "I've been unwell for weeks," she admitted. "Sana does everything. Cooking, cleaning, sitting in the market. She makes those bracelets herself at night. I try to stop her, but she won't. She says she wants to save money for my medicine." Armand felt a gentle ache in his chest. He realized now how heavy the little girl's burden was. She didn't cry or complain in the market. She simply sat there, carrying hope in a basket of colorful bracelets. "She said people don't buy much?" Armand asked. The woman lowered her gaze. "Most people are busy with their own lives. Some think she's exaggerating. Some don't want to spend money on small things. But Sana keeps going. She believes someone will come who will understand." Armand remembered the moment she asked him to wait. She didn't give him the map out of desperation. She gave it because, in her heart, she believed in kindness. That trust made him feel responsible. "I will bring medicine for you," Armand said gently, "and I'll see what else you need." The woman shook her head lightly. "You have already done enough. You bought her bracelet. That alone made her so happy. She came home last night and said someone smiled at her. She talked about it for a long time." Armand felt humbled by her words. A smile, something so small for him, had meant everything to the girl. "Still," he said, "I want to help more." The woman looked at him, studying his face for a moment. Then she nodded slowly, accepting his sincerity. "Thank you," she whispered. Armand spent a few more minutes inside the house, learning about Sana's daily routine. She woke up early, prepared her mother's food, cleaned the house, then went to the market with her basket. She returned home late afternoon, made dinner, and worked on more bracelets under the dim light of a small lamp. It was a heavy schedule for a child, but she handled it without complaint. As Armand prepared to leave, he heard soft footsteps outside. Sana walked in, carrying her empty basket. She saw Armand standing near her mother and froze for a moment in surprise. Then her eyes widened with worry. "Sir, did you come here?" She asked nervously, as if afraid she might have caused him too much trouble. Armand gave her a warm smile. "Yes, I came. I wanted to meet your mother." She looked at her mother, then at Armand again, unsure what to say. Her small hands tightened around the basket handle. "I'm sorry if it was wrong to give you the map," she whispered. "It wasn't wrong," Armand said gently. "You trusted me, and I respect that." She relaxed a little, relief spreading across her face. Then she gave a grateful smile, the same soft smile she had shown in the market, but this time warmer. Knowing he had actually come, her mother watched them both, her eyes filled with silent gratitude, not just for the help, but for the kindness shown to her daughter. Armand promised them he would return the next day with what they needed. As he stepped outside, Sana followed him to the doorstep. "Thank you for coming," she said quietly. "People walk past me every day, but you stopped." Armand looked at her with gentle admiration. "Sometimes, we all need someone to stop," he replied. The girl nodded, understanding his words in a way only someone who had experienced struggle could. Armand walked away from the house, feeling something change inside him. He had come to help a stranger, but now it felt like he was part of something bigger, something meaningful. Sana's trust had opened a door not just to her home, but to a deeper sense of compassion he hadn't felt in a long time. And he knew, as he walked back through the quiet path toward the market, that this was only the beginning of what he was meant to do. Armand woke up early the next morning with Sana and her mother still on his mind. The little girl's quiet courage and the heavy responsibility she carried made him feel both thoughtful and determined. He wasn't a rich man, but he knew he could do something meaningful, something that could make their lives a little easier. He believed that even small actions, when done sincerely, could bring big changes, and for the first time in a long while, he felt deeply connected to a purpose. He got dressed quickly, drank a simple cup of tea, and stepped outside into the fresh morning air. The sky was soft and calm, with golden sunlight spreading across the village. He walked toward the pharmacy, thinking about what he had learned the previous day. Sana's mother was ill but hopeful. She needed proper medicine, good food, and rest. Sana needed support too, someone to remind her that she didn't have to carry the world alone. At the pharmacy, Armand explained the symptoms he had observed. Weakness, dizziness, constant tiredness. The pharmacist listened carefully and handed him a small bag of basic but important medicines, along with instructions written in simple words. Armand also bought a few healthy items from a nearby store: milk, fruits, and some bread things that would help the recovering woman. As he carried the items home, he felt a strange mixture of responsibility and joy. Helping others had never felt so personal. He didn't know Sana before yesterday, yet now he cared about her like she was a part of his own family. That thought warmed his heart. When he finally reached the small house under the neem tree, he knocked gently. Sana's mother answered the door, looking better than the day before but still tired. She smiled weakly when she saw him. "You came again," she said softly. "I said I would," Armand replied, handing her the medicine bag. "These should help you feel better." The pharmacist said they must be taken on time. The woman accepted the bag with trembling hands. She looked at it as if it were something precious. "Thank you," she whispered. "You don't know what this means to us." Before Armand could respond, he heard small footsteps inside. Sana appeared, rubbing sleep from her eyes. When she saw Armand standing there with groceries and medicine, her face lit up in pure, innocent happiness. She came forward quickly. "You came early," she said, surprised but happy. "I wanted to make sure your mother gets better soon," he answered gently. Sana nodded and helped him carry the items inside. She handled everything with care, like someone used to managing a home despite her young age. Armand watched her quietly, noticing how mature she seemed, yet still fragile, in a way only a child could be. After everything was arranged, he sat on a small wooden chair they offered him. Sana's mother sat on the bed, and Sana sat beside her, holding her hand. I want to understand more, Armand said softly. How long have you both been managing alone? The woman looked down, her eyes filling with memories she tried to hide. It has been months since my health started getting worse, she explained. At first, I tried to keep working. But slowly, I couldn't. I used to cook in people's homes. But when I became too weak, they brought other workers. We had some savings, but they finished quickly. Sana squeezed her mother's hand gently. She didn't interrupt, but her eyes showed she had lived through every moment of that struggle. I told Sana to go to school. The mother continued with a soft sigh. But she said she wanted to help me. So she began making bracelets. She learned from an old neighbor who used to make them. Then she said she wanted to sell them at the market. Armin remembered the girl sitting quietly with her basket. The memory tugged at his heart. Do many people buy them? He asked. Sana shook her head. Not many. Some days, nobody buys anything. But I keep trying. Maybe one day, someone will buy more. Armin smiled kindly. Your bracelets are beautiful, and you work very hard. She blushed slightly, not used to compliments. You know, Armand continued, you shouldn't have to do everything alone. A child deserves to be cared for too. Sana looked down for a moment, as if she wasn't sure how to believe that. She had been carrying her responsibilities for so long that she had forgotten what it meant to be a child. Her mother's voice trembled. She is a good girl. She has taken care of me, even when she was scared. Those words made Armin's heart feel heavier. Sana was brave, yes, but bravery shouldn't replace childhood. He wanted to help them both. And he wanted the village to help too. As he sat there, thinking carefully, an idea began to form. He knew the people in the village. Many of them were kind-hearted but busy. Some simply didn't realize that a little girl needed their support. Maybe, he thought, they just needed someone to remind them. Before leaving, Armin gave Sana's mother instructions about the medicine. Then he turned to Sana. I'll go to the market today, he said. You go ahead as usual. I'll meet you there later. Really? She asked with curious eyes. Yes, he said with a warm smile. I have something to do. Her eyes sparkled with hope, though she didn't know what he meant. He walked out of the house and headed back toward the center of the village. As he walked, he realized that helping one family wasn't only about money or medicine. It was about opening the hearts of others too. If everyone gave even a little support, things would change for the better quickly and naturally. When he reached the market, he spoke to a few vendors he had known for years. At first they listened with surprise. Some of them admitted they had seen Sana many times but didn't know her story. Others felt guilty that they had walked past her without noticing her quiet struggle. A fruit seller shook his head. We never knew, he said softly. The poor child. She never complained. She just sat there. Another vendor added, if someone had told us earlier, maybe we would have helped. Armin didn't blame them. He only said, we can still help now. It's not too late. The vendors nodded in agreement. Some offered to buy bracelets from her. Others said they would bring food for her mother. One woman even said she knew a community worker who could visit their home and check on the mother's health. Armand felt encouraged. Sometimes, people weren't unkind, they were simply unaware. And Sana's story had opened their hearts. A few hours later, he saw Sana walking into the market with her basket. She sat down in her usual spot and arranged her bracelets neatly. But today was different. People actually noticed her. A woman bought 2 bracelets. A man bought 3. Another gave her a little extra money. Sana looked confused at first, then slowly happy. As if she couldn't understand why so many people were being kind all at once. Armin watched from a distance for a moment. The smile on her face was gentle but bright, like a flower finally receiving sunlight after a long time. When she looked up and saw him, she waved excitedly. He walked over, and she held up the almost empty basket. Look, she said, her voice full of joy. People bought so many today. That's wonderful, Armand replied. You deserve it. Sana looked around, still surprised. But why today? She asked softly. Nobody buys so much normally. Armand smiled. Sometimes, people need a reminder to see what is right in front of them. Sana didn't fully understand, but she nodded anyway, trusting his words just like she had trusted him the day before. As the sun lowered in the sky and the market began to quiet down, Armand realized something important. The hidden truth he discovered today wasn't just about Sana's mother's illness. It was about the strength of a child who believed in kindness even when the world seemed too busy to notice her. It was about a community waking up to its own humanity. And it was about how one small act, just a simple $5 purchase, could open a door to something far bigger. He walked home that evening with the warm feeling that he had done something meaningful. But he also knew this journey was not over yet. The next morning, Armand woke up with a sense of quiet happiness. The memory of Sana's bright smile at the market stayed with him through the night. It reminded him how even the smallest kindness could open the softest corners of a child's heart. He felt hopeful, not only for Sana and her mother, but for the entire village. Yesterday had shown him that people were willing to help once they understood the truth. Today, he believed, would bring even more change. When he stepped outside, the village was slowly waking up. Birds chirped from rooftops, neighbors swept their front yards, and children prepared for school. The fresh air felt different to Armand, lighter, brighter, as if the world itself had sensed a quiet shift. He walked toward the market again, carrying a small bag of fruit and milk for Sana's mother. Along the way, several villagers stopped him. A woman selling flowers asked, "Is that little girl's mother doing better?" Another man running a tea stall said he wanted to send some warm food to their home later in the afternoon. Armand thanked them politely. He was touched by how quickly people were now paying attention. Sometimes, kindness only needed a spark. When he reached the market, he looked for Sana. She wasn't there yet. Her spot was still empty, but the vendors nearby seemed aware of her arrival before she even showed up. The man who sold vegetables cleaned the area around her usual place. The fruit seller placed a small stool nearby in case she needed it. The woman who sold clothes hung a cloth above the spot to give her shade from the sun. Armand noticed all of this and felt his heart warm. Yesterday's conversations had planted something in them, something gentle and powerful. A few minutes later, Sana appeared, walking slowly toward the market, with her basket hanging from her arm. She looked different today. There was energy in her steps, light in her eyes. Maybe it was because yesterday had been good, or maybe because she felt less alone now. When she reached her little spot and saw the clean ground, the shade, and the small stool waiting for her, she paused. She looked around at the vendors, unsure if all this was really for her. When the vegetable seller smiled at her and said, "Good morning, Betty," she gave a shy smile back. It was clear she wasn't used to this kind of attention. Armand stepped forward. "You're early today," he said gently. Sana nodded. "I wanted to come before the rush," she said with a small smile. "Maybe today will be good again." Sana, I think so too," Armand replied. He sat down nearby and watched as people passed. Something beautiful happened. Instead of walking past her, people stopped. They asked about her bracelets, picked them up gently, admired the colors, and bought them without bargaining. Some people didn't even want the bracelets, they simply wanted to support her. By mid-morning, half her basket was already empty. Sana looked amazed. Her eyes sparkled each time a bracelet left her hand. Every small sale felt like a victory. Not only for her, but for the quiet hope she carried every day. At one point, an older woman approached. She wore simple clothes and carried a cloth bag, but her voice was warm. "You're doing good work, child," she said kindly. "Your bracelets are lovely. I will buy one for my granddaughter." Sana picked a yellow bracelet with care. "I hope she likes it," she said softly. The woman smiled. "She will. And even if she doesn't, I will tell her about the brave girl who made it." Sana's cheeks turned pink. Compliments were still new to her. Armand watched all of this with gentle pride. The community was waking up, just as he had hoped. So many people had walked past Sana before, unaware of her story, but now they saw her not as a seller in the market, but as a strong child trying her best. At noon, Armin suggested they take a break. "You've been sitting for a long time," he said. "Let's rest a little." Sana hesitated. "What if people come, and I'm not here?" she asked. "They will wait," Armin replied. "And even if they don't, your health matters too." She finally agreed, and they walked to a small bench at the edge of the market. Armin bought her a cup of juice, and she drank it slowly, savoring every sip. She wasn't used to such small luxuries, and she treated the juice with the same care she treated her bracelets. "Did you see?" she asked quietly. "People talked to me today." They smiled. They bought bracelets, and nobody walked past without looking. "I saw," Armin replied. "You deserve it." Sana looked down at her hands. "I don't know why everyone changed. It feels strange, but nice." "It changed because you were brave," Armin said. "You kept trying. You didn't give up." She looked thoughtful. "I wanted to help my mother," she said. "I didn't know what else to do. I just wanted her to get better." "Your love for her is stronger than anything," Armin replied with sincerity. "And people can see that now." After their break, they returned to the market. When Sana sat at her spot again, more people came. By afternoon, her basket was completely empty. Not a single bracelet remained. She stared at the empty basket with wide eyes. "This has never happened," she whispered. Armin smiled. "Then today is special." She nodded slowly, still trying to believe it. Before she left the market, several vendors approached her with small gifts, some fruits, a few pieces of bread, a packet of rice. They handed them to her gently, as if offering support to a family they truly cared about. "Give this to your mother," one woman said warmly, "and tell her we are praying for her." Sana accepted everything carefully, thanking each person with soft gratitude. She looked overwhelmed, but in a happy way, as though the world had suddenly become kinder. And she wasn't sure how to react to so much goodness. As she prepared to go home, Armin walked with her. He carried some of the heavier items to make it easier for her. "Today was good," she said quietly as they walked. "Very good." "It was," Armin agreed. "Do you think it will stay this way?" she asked, almost whispering. "I think things will get even better," he replied with confidence. When they reached her house, her mother was waiting at the door. She looked stronger today, her face had more color, and her voice was a little firmer. "What happened?" her mother asked in surprise when she saw the food in their hands. Sana's eyes filled with excitement. "Mama, the whole basket is empty. People bought everything." Her mother didn't know what to say. She looked at Armin with grateful, emotional eyes. He simply nodded and handed her the bag of medicine. "This will help you recover faster," he said. "And the village wants to help too." The woman placed a hand over her heart. "May God bless you," she said softly. "You have given us hope again." Armin didn't feel like he had done something extraordinary. He had only done what felt right. But seeing the relief on their faces made him realize how deeply small things mattered. He stepped outside, leaving mother and daughter to celebrate their good day in peace. As he walked home, he felt something warm spread through his chest. The village had woken up. Kindness had returned, and Sana, a small girl with a big heart, had become a quiet reminder that compassion could change everything. Yet Armin sensed there was still more to come, something even bigger waiting ahead, something that would bring the whole journey together in an unforgettable way. Sana's life slowly began to change in ways she had never imagined. The small house that once felt cold and lonely now felt warmer each day as her mother's health continued to improve. The medicines that had been impossible to buy earlier were now available to them because of the kindness shown by the villagers. Every morning, sunlight entered through the broken window, and instead of worry, it brought hope. Sana would wake up early, help her mother sit up, and prepare a simple breakfast. Her mother would smile more often now, a smile that had disappeared for a long time. Seeing her mother recover gave Sana a happiness she could not describe in words. It felt like the world had finally started listening to her prayers. Armand visited often. He never intruded, never forced himself into their lives, but always arrived with a gentle knock and a kind smile. Sometimes he brought fresh vegetables, sometimes books, and sometimes he brought nothing but time to sit and talk with them. Sana's mother would thank him repeatedly. But Armand always shook his head and said that the real strength belonged to Sana for refusing to give up. He believed the girl had held the entire house together with nothing but her courage. His visits became a natural part of their days, something they looked forward to. As Sana's mother grew stronger, she began to take small steps outside. The villagers who once ignored her now greeted her kindly. Some offered help, and others apologized for not noticing her struggle earlier. She accepted everything with calmness, never blaming anyone, because she knew that holding anger only makes the heart heavier. She was simply grateful that life was giving her another chance. One afternoon, Sana sat outside with Armand as her mother rested inside. She played with the bracelets she had made earlier. They were not perfect, but they carried her feelings and hope in every thread she tied. Armand noticed how carefully she touched them and asked if she enjoyed making them. She nodded shyly and said that making bracelets helped her forget her worries. Armand told her that her skill was special and that she could turn it into something bigger one day. Sana did not completely understand at first, but his confidence in her made her feel proud. A week later, Armand brought a small box and handed it to Sana. She opened it slowly and found bright threads, tiny beads, and smooth strings inside. Her eyes widened with excitement. He explained that these were materials she could use to create more bracelets. Sana hesitated, unsure if she deserved such a gift. But Armand encouraged her. He said that these were tools for her talent, and she should use them proudly. That night, she worked carefully, creating bracelets with new colors and better patterns. She showed them to her mother, who praised her work with shining eyes. Soon after, Sana's return to school became the next big step. Her mother wanted her to continue her studies, and Armand supported the idea fully. The villagers agreed that Sana should not lose her education. One morning, with books in her hands and nervous excitement in her heart, she walked back to the school she had stopped attending months earlier. Many children looked at her curiously. Some remembered her, and some whispered among themselves. Sana felt a little shy, but she kept walking with her head held high. The teacher welcomed her warmly and introduced her to the class again. At first, Sana felt uncomfortable because she had missed many lessons. She worried she would not understand anything, but the teacher assigned a student to help her catch up. Armand also brought her extra notebooks and simple learning guides to study at home. Night after night, she studied with determination, trying to rebuild the time she had lost. Her mother would sit beside her, watching proudly as Sana worked hard with full focus. As weeks passed, Sana's confidence began to grow. She answered questions in class, made new friends, and slowly regained the joy she had once felt while learning. The other children admired her courage and often praised the colorful bracelet she wore on her wrist. Some even asked if she could make one for them, and Sana happily agreed. Every bracelet she made reminded her of her journey, her struggles, and her strength. Meanwhile, the villagers continued supporting Sana's family. Some repaired the broken roof of their house, others painted the walls, and a few donated furniture. Their simple home soon became a safe and comfortable place again. Sana's mother felt blessed to see her daughter smiling and living like a child again, not carrying the heavy responsibilities she once had. One evening, as the sun began to set behind the hills, the villagers gathered for a small community event. Armand invited Sana and her mother as special guests. A few villagers had prepared a display table with food, crafts, and handmade items from the community. To Sana's surprise, Armand had arranged a small section just for her bracelets. He asked Sana to place her creations there and display them proudly. She felt nervous at first, but her mother encouraged her with a gentle squeeze of the hand. People admired her work. They asked how she made them, how long each one took, and why she chose certain colors. Sana explained everything politely, And her confidence grew with each question. Several villagers bought the bracelets, not out of pity, but because they genuinely liked her creations. Sana felt a joy she had never felt before. For the first time, she realized her talent could bring something meaningful into her life. As the evening continued, Armin stood beside Sana and her mother, watching the happiness on their faces. He felt grateful that he had stopped at that market on the day he first met Sana. He had not expected his small act of kindness to change so many lives, including his own. The villagers, who once overlooked small struggles around them, were now more attentive and caring. They had learned something important from Sana's courage and Armand's compassion. With time, Sana's mother found part-time work at a local shop. She was not fully strong, but she was improving every day. The extra income helped them become more independent. Sana continued her studies and dedicated time to her bracelet-making hobby as well. The villagers often encouraged her, saying she could become a successful craft artist in the future. Life became stable, not perfect, but peaceful. Sana and her mother no longer feared tomorrow. They had a community that cared for them, a friend like Armin who always supported them, and the strength that came from surviving difficult times. Sana often remembered the moment Armand handed her $5 at the market. She realized now that the real value was not the money, but the kindness behind it. It was that kindness that gave her the courage to trust him and ask for help. Months later, on a quiet morning, Sana sat outside her home watching children walk to school. She felt proud knowing she was one of them again. She touched the bracelet on her wrist, the first one she had ever made, and smiled. Her life had turned in a new direction, filled with hope and purpose. People might say her journey began with just $5, but she knew it began with belief. Belief in herself, belief in kindness, and belief in the possibility of change. And everyone who knew her story continued to remember the young girl whose next move shocked an entire village, not through fear or anger, but through courage, trust, and a heart full of hope.